Discovered my roommate's parents raiding my closet and criticizing my clothing, all while crashing our apartment as unwanted chaperones. My parents are good friends with my roommate's parents, but back in high school, my roommate and I were never exactly close. It wasn't until we started living together in a dorm that I really got to know her. Recently, my parents decided to spoil me a bit. They got me my own apartment and even pay the rent every month. What's wild is, my roommate's parents don't contribute to the rent at all. I guess they still see the place as a free-for-all, because over the past few months, things have gotten seriously weird. It started when we'd come home from class and find her mom in the apartment, doing our laundry almost every week. At first, I thought, well, at least it's free labor. But it didn't stop there. Her mom started showing up to cook for us, scrubbing the kitchen, cleaning the living room, even vacuuming, rooms she'd barely stepped into. But when I came home one afternoon and walked into my room, I found her in my closet, sifting through my clothes. She held up one of my shirts, my favorite tube top, and called me a slut for having it. As if that wasn't enough, on Friday nights her mom and dad would just hang out at our place, camping out on the couch to make sure we don't party. I'd walk in ready to decompress, and there they'd be, like our personal chaperones. This apartment is supposed to be my sanctuary, but it's starting to feel like I never really left home at all. Update 1. I just returned from my morning run, feeling energized, when I walked into the kitchen around 7 a.m. and spotted my roommate and her mom standing side by side, sipping coffee. Her mom hardly ever showed up at our apartment this early, which instantly put me a little on edge. I decided that was the moment to finally talk about everything that had been weighing on me, especially before heading to class. Taking a deep breath, I said, "Hey auntie, can we talk?" Because, well, in my culture everyone a little older automatically gets the auntie title. Point by point, I told her exactly how I've been feeling. I started by saying I genuinely appreciated all the cooking and cleaning she'd done, but I love cooking for myself and wanted that freedom back. I told her it felt like I wasn't allowed in my own kitchen. I also made it clear I preferred to do my own laundry and clean my own room. These small acts were so important to me. Then I addressed my room, reminding her that I'd already mentioned not wanting anyone in there and that's why I installed the lock on the door the first time. Finally, I asked her that if she was going to visit my roommate, it'd be nice if her sent me a heads up, just so I wasn't surprised. To my relief, both of them seemed to understand where I was coming from. I even hugged her mom before heading out, thinking maybe we'd cleared the air. Before leaving for class, I put in a load of laundry, something I'd been looking forward to. That night was my friend's birthday dinner, and I had the cutest white dress with an open back all picked out. Honestly, my own mom gave it to me, saying it was adorable on me. I wanted it to be extra fresh for the evening, so I tossed it in the wash. I specifically asked RM several times if she planned to do laundry today. She said no. Just to be extra sure, I mentioned I'd be back around 1 and told her she could use the machine later, after I was done. R chimed in, saying she didn't need to wash anything either. I felt so much relief walking out, but I still locked my bedroom door. You know, just in case. Fast forward to a little while ago when I walked back into my apartment. First thing I noticed, the white dress was missing. I was visibly nervous the second I walked in. I immediately noticed my clothes were in the dryer, something I knew for a fact I hadn't done myself. RM tried to gaslight me, insisting that I'd done it and just forgotten. I retreated to my room, heart racing and mind swirling. I just knew she must have taken the dress, probably because it was something she wouldn't approve of. While I was in my room, I overheard RM talking in our language to her daughter, saying, "I don't know why she's freaking out about that dress. In India, only escorts and prostitutes wear those kinds of clothes." Then she went on about how I'll never find a husband dressing like this. It honestly felt like she wanted me to hear every single word. Now I'm sitting alone in my room, trying desperately not to cry. Is she just being a passive-aggressive bitch to me right now? I'm doing everything not to break down. Update 2. When I left my apartment yesterday for my parents' house, I realized I'd forgotten my credit card. So I walked back up, and there was her studying, while RM lounged on the couch watching TV. As soon as she saw me, RM asked where I was going, and, half joking, half annoyed, I told her, "Away from you." I guess that set her off, because she shot up and started yelling at me, ranting about what a lousy job my mom did raising me, accusing her of teaching me how to run around the city with different guys and talk back to adults. My frustration snapped, and I ended up cussing her out right then and there. That must have really flipped a switch in her, because suddenly she was storming off into the kitchen and came back wielding a wooden spoon from one of the drawers. Yes, this woman actually came at me with a wooden spoon, like she was a cartoon mother from 1957. At that point, I bolted out of the apartment, laughing uncontrollably at the absurdity of it all. It was like I'd fallen into some bizarre, slapstick drama, and I couldn't believe it was happening. But, honestly, RM's behavior had gone past eccentric. I seriously started worrying for her mental health. When I arrived at my parents', everyone was home. My mom, my brother, his girlfriend, and even her parents. I told them the whole saga, and, as expected, nobody was happy to hear about it. My mom grabbed her phone, called my dad, and relayed everything to him in a voice so dangerous I swear, she was about to start growling. When my dad got home, the first thing he did was hug me. And then, to my shock, he He started crying because hearing that someone had called me a prostitute and a slut was just too much for him. Until that moment, I had never seen my father cry, and it absolutely destroyed me. My mom wasted no time. She demanded RM, RD, and R come over for a talk. They showed up almost immediately, probably because they'd picked up on the fury in my mom's tone. But my mom wasn't playing nice. She refused to let them inside, making them stand on the doorstep throughout the whole confrontation. It was easy to tell RM was fuming about this little act of pettiness. The confrontation was intense. My mom started by asking, "Why are you calling my daughter these names?" RM, predictably, threw out a weak denial, claimed I was making it all up. Then my mom questioned, "Why are you even in the apartment so much? You told us you only go there once a month to check on R, and that R visits you every weekend?" RM tried to justify it. "The kids don't know how to cook, so I help. And they're busy studying." The next question hit harder. "Why is a 50-year-old man in my daughter's apartment?" Silence. No answer. My mom pressed on, "Why are you going through my daughter's stuff? Why does she need a lock? Why are you limiting my daughter's time with her friends?" Another wall of silence. Things escalated even more from there. RM lost her cool and started insulting my parents. She called my mom a bad mother who never disciplined her kids. She called me unruly and relentlessly attacked my clothing choices. She just kept going on and on, like my wardrobe had personally insulted her ancestors. That was the breaking point for my brother. He whipped out his phone and showed RM Instagram pictures of her wearing far more revealing clothes than I ever had, and even one of her sitting on a boy's lap. That shut RM up about my fashion choices instantly. Then RM decided to take a jab at my parents' professions, saying they have god complexes. My brother wasn't having any of it. He shot back, "You own 3 subways and are almost broke, but we never say anything about it." That was the straw that broke the camel's back. RM completely lost it and actually leaned in, trying to slap my brother. Right there, in front of both my parents, she tried to slap my 24-year-old brother. More arguing erupted, and finally, my mom demanded, again, to know the whereabouts of my dress. This time, RM turned on her heel, stomped to her car, and came back waving my dress, which she'd stuffed in her purse. She walked right up and, with a flourish, hurled the dress in my face. That was the last straw for my mom. Without hesitation, she slapped RM across the face. I have never seen my mother hit anyone in my entire life. I started laughing uncontrollably. Even my dad had to retreat inside to stop himself from laughing right in RM's face. RM started crying then, saying she was going to call the cops on us. Once they left, my family all sat down for a serious talk. My parents were furious that I hadn't told them any of this before. They said the entire reason they'd gotten me that apartment was so I'd have a space to just be myself, to bring friends over, to have independence, and to enjoy a life free from parental meddling. They did say they were proud of how I'd handled everything and agreed that involving the police would have escalated things unnecessarily. They did give my brother some grief for bringing up those pictures, saying now I was going to have more drama at home. My parents also admitted that letting her stay in my apartment without asking me first was a mistake. They started the eviction process the very next day. Despite how wild this sounds, I do stand up for myself, even if in this case, I hesitated because I didn't want to upset my parents or make things awkward between them and their friends. It's definitely been a learning experience, and now I know I don't need to put up with any of this nonsense, especially since I have my parents' support. I'm moving on, and bringing in one of my best high school friends as my new roommate. She's not Indian, just FYI. This time, nobody's living rent-free. I'll admit, even though R and I weren't close in high school, 2 years of living together made us friends. No idea if we'll ever get back to that, but losing a friend always stings. Just to clarify, my parents are incredibly liberal, Americanized Indians. They've lived here over 40 years. They weren't trying to spy on me or police what I wear or who I hang out with. Skirts and tube tops, guy friends, whatever, they don't care. They just want me to be safe and happy. And for anyone who thinks I'm less of an adult because my parents pay my rent and tuition, I don't see it that way. I'm endlessly grateful my parents can support me and want to help me graduate debt-free. It's their money, their choice. And if anything, it motivates me to keep my GPA at 4.0. No excuses. Living through all this taught me something valuable. I don't have to tiptoe around to avoid drama. With my parents' support, petty nonsense like this won't shake me anymore. Update 3. The locksmith came at 8 a.m. with the building manager, and I cannot explain the relief I felt hearing a brand new deadbolt click into place. He handed me 2 keys, took a picture of me holding them with a timestamp for their records, and the manager put a bright orange authorized tenants only sticker on our door like we were a miniature crime scene. My mom stood in the hallway with her arms crossed like security detail. It felt ridiculous and also, so good. Right as the locksmith was packing up, RM swept out of the elevator with a bag of okra and an attitude, acting like she'd caught us TPing her house. "Open the door," she told me, like she owned the hallways. The manager stepped between us and said, "Calm as a rock, Mrs. D, you are not on the lease." She tried to walk around him, and he just pointed at the sticker, then at me, then at the camera over our door. The deadbolt thunked, the message landed. I went to class. When I came back, the handle on the door did that telltale rattle like someone was testing it. I checked the new peephole and there was RM, head bent, trying different keys. I swear to God she put her palm over my new doorbell camera like she was a cat knocking something off a counter. I waited. She tried 3 times and then left in a huff. I sent the clip to the building manager and he emailed me back within 5 minutes. If she returns, call us, we will trespass her. It felt so official and so stupid that it had to be this way. R texted me asking if she could come up alone to get her stuff. I met her in the lobby. She looked like she hadn't slept, eyes puffy, hair in a bun that had given up. I'm sorry, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't know she copied the key. She tugged at her sleeve and told me her mom had taken her phone the night before and put a password on it. She'd borrowed a friend's to text me. I wanted to hug her, and I also wanted to be anywhere else. We rode the elevator without talking. I gave her boxes and tape and the new key to bring stuff down, and we set a timer so we didn't have to hover over each other. She packed, I stayed in my room with my door open so she didn't feel watched, and we just passed like boats in the hallway with boxes between us. RM, of course, didn't believe in alone. Half an hour into our loading up, the elevator dinged and out stepped RM and an uncle I'd never met. My mom was already in the apartment with me, hair tied back like she was about to deep clean a Costco. RM barreled up and tried to walk in. My mom held the doorframe with one hand and said, "No." Not loud, not dramatic. Just, "No." RM did this laugh that wasn't a laugh. "My daughter's things are inside." My mom said, "And your daughter is inside, and she is taking them." RM craned her neck and yelled into my living room, "Don't let them keep the microwave." My mom pointed at the microwave and then at the receipt I had taped to its side, because I was petty and prepared. I don't think I've ever seen someone deflate so fast over a kitchen appliance. R pulled her suitcase out. The handle wobbled like it wanted to collapse. She paused in the doorway and looked at me. "I'm sorry," she said again, and I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. RM tried to talk over her, asking for my colander, mine, my spice rack, also mine, and then the white dress, yes, the same white dress she'd thrown in my face the day before. I think my lip actually curled. My mom walked to the coat closet, pulled out a plastic garment bag with the dress inside, and zipped it once, loud. "This is not your property," she said. "Please step back." RM stared at the bag like it was haunted. They left. Then they came back. I am not joking. 15 minutes later, the manager knocked with 2 officers behind him. RM had gone downstairs and told the concierge we'd locked her out of her child's home. The officers were polite in that tired cop way. I showed our lease. The manager pulled up the email where R's name had been removed that morning. We played the clip of RM covering my doorbell camera with her hand like a toddler. One officer asked RM if anyone had put their hands on her. She said no. He asked her if she understood she needed permission to be in our apartment. She did that thing where you blink like the question is in a different language. He said, "Ma'am, you've been warned. Don't come back without an invitation." RM looked at R. R looked at the floor. Everyone looked at my mom. My mom asked the officers if they wanted chai. One of them smiled and said maybe next time. After they left, I ordered a pizza and ate it on the kitchen floor. It felt ceremonial. My dad called to say RD had called him earlier in this weird hush voice apology. "She went too far," he said, speaking about his own wife like she was a summer storm that had ignored the forecast. He asked if he could send money for the locksmith. My dad told him to save it and spend it on a therapist. RD didn't laugh. I heard the swell of something like relief over the line. Move out finished the next morning. My mom hired actual movers so I didn't have to come back with a brigade of uncles. 2 guys in matching shirts and gloves flew through her room with soft blankets and packing tape music. I stood in the hallway and texted her that if she left anything sentimental, I'd put it aside. She texted back a heart and "Please keep the plant, it'll die at my parents'." I looked at the little pothos she'd taped to the wall with command strips and felt something soften. I watered it. By the afternoon, the apartment had that echo it gets when a bed leaves a room. My high school friend rolled up with 2 suitcases and a blender and a candle that smells like oranges. We hung up a little sign on the inside of our door that says "No aunties beyond this point" because sometimes you have to laugh so you don't start building an altar to your rage. We cooked dinner without anyone taking the spatula out of our hands. We turned on music and danced, badly, in socks. No one asked us where we were going, who we were seeing, what we were wearing. Later that night, the building manager emailed me a formal notice. If RM returns to the property and attempts entry again, they'll pursue a no trespass order. He also attached a string of emails from other tenants about 2 older adults who loiter in the hallway on Friday nights and make remarks about boys in shorts. I had to sit down because I felt seen by my whole building. Sunday we went to temple because my mom wanted to thank God we didn't end up on the 6 o'clock news. We walked in, and there was the committee of aunties in their usual corner like judges on a reality show. RM was not there. RD was, alone, head low. He walked up to my dad, folded his hands, and did a small head bow. My dad touched his shoulder and they stood there for a second like 2 men who wished they were anywhere else. One auntie started to wind up with a question, and my mom just looked at her and said, "No." The auntie put her laddu back on her plate like she'd been caught stealing. I came home to an empty living room and my white dress hanging on the back of my door, just because I wanted to see it somewhere that wasn't a battleground. I made tea. My new roommate curled up on the couch and told me about her first day of class fiasco. The pothos sat on the windowsill, leaves perked, ridiculous in its bravery. And for the first time in months, the only footsteps I heard in our hallway were ours. Update 4. I finally wore the white dress, not to a party, not to spite anyone, just because the sun came out and my shoulders felt like they'd been in timeout for months. I was zipping it when someone knocked with that specific rhythm of duty, not friend. Through the peephole, a man in a windbreaker holding a thick envelope like it was radioactive. "Are you, my name?" he asked, and my stomach did a weird electric flip because I knew exactly what a process server looked like without ever having ordered one. He handed me a summons for a temporary protective order hearing, RM, alleging I was harassing her and interfering with her parental rights. My mom read the paperwork, flipped it over to see if there was a punchline, and said, in the same tone she uses to ask if I've eaten, "Okay. We'll go." Court smelled like old carpet and coffee left on the burner too long. The line for the metal detector snaked past a vending machine that only sold Diet Coke and Cheez-Its. RM arrived wrapped in enough silk to upholster a love seat, RD trailing with a manila folder like he'd been assigned documents and didn't know what that meant. He gave me a small head shake that read "I am sorry" and also terrified. My mom showed up in sneakers and a blazer and the expression of a woman who does not fear God because God calls her for advice. Our building manager came, too, with a letter that said, as calmly as a spreadsheet, that RM was not on the lease and had been warned, for trespass. The judge called our case and we shuffled into a little rectangle of space where everyone forgets how to stand. RM went first. She started with the slap and then, like a wind-up toy, veered straight into my dress, my late nights, the microwave, the supposed moral decimation of America. The judge held up one hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to talk about threats and physical harm only." RM tried again, this time with a flourish about how I'd turned her child against her. The judge looked at the petition, then at my mom, then at me. "Have you contacted the petitioner?" he asked. "No," my mom said. "I've been trying not to be within 10 feet of her pearls." The manager slid the trespass letter forward. He also, God bless him, had printed a screenshot of RM's palm over my doorbell camera. The judge put on his glasses like he needed to see stupidity in high definition. "Mrs. D," he said, "you cannot go into someone's townhouse because your daughter lives there sometimes. That is not the law." He turned to my mom. "About the slap," my mom nodded. "I did that. It is not my proudest moment." The judge inhaled like he was sipping steam. "No protective order today. If you wish to pursue an assault charge, ma'am, you may go to the magistrate. Otherwise, there will be no contact either direction. Do you understand me?" RM started to ramp up again and the judge just said her first name, once, like a bell. It silenced her more than any argument could. Petition denied. We all stood there blinking like we'd been hit with fluorescent lights. In the hallway, RD touched his forehead with 2 fingers like he was blessing my mother. "I am so sorry," he said quietly. She is not listening to anyone." He told us he'd been sleeping at his cousin's place. He didn't look at RM when he said it. I wanted to hand him a sandwich and a nap. I wasn't there. Part of me was relieved. Part of me wanted to know if she was eating. That night, right after dinner, my phone made that unfamiliar sound, that polite but ominous chime, and a pop-up slid across my screen. "AirTag found moving with you." For a full 3 seconds I thought Apple was congratulating me on embracing accessories. Then my spine went cold. My roommate and I went absolutely silent in that horror movie way and started the play sound hunt, phones out like ghost hunters. We checked my purse, the couch, under the welcome mat. Nothing. The chime got louder near the window. We turned like we were underwater. It was coming from the pothos. The sweet little plant I asked me to keep, sitting there with its heart-shaped leaves like an idiot brave thing. I dug into the soil with my fingers and hit plastic. An AirTag, saran wrapped and tucked under the top layer of dirt. I held it up between my fingers like a weird white coin and just started laughing, which turned into crying, which turned back into laughing because of course an auntie had put a tracking device in a houseplant. My roommate got paper towels and then my mom arrived because of course she did, and she went from 0 to forensic in 12 seconds. We dropped the tag into a Ziploc like it might bite us. I called non-emergency. The officer who came by had the same tired cop kindness from before. He took down the serial number, told me they could send a preservation request to Apple, and bagged it like it was a snake. "You'd be surprised how many of these we see with exes," he said, glancing at my mom. "And parents," my mom said, deadpan. He didn't argue. I texted her from the kitchen while the AirTag chirped one last time in a clear evidence bag on my counter. "We just found an AirTag hidden in the pothos you asked me to keep. I'm telling you because I don't want to accuse the wrong person. Was this you?" It felt like I was scraping the bottom of my moral stomach. The 3 dots blinked. "No," she wrote back. "I swear on everything. I'm at my aunt's. My mom had my stuff for 2 days before the movers. She said she wanted to repot the plant." My sink was suddenly very interesting. My mom read over my shoulder and closed her eyes for one long second. "Okay," I typed. "We gave it to the police." R sent a string of texts after that were just sorries in different spellings. I put my phone face down and rinsed soil off my knuckles until the water ran clear. The building manager sent a formal attachment the next morning, a no trespass notice filed with RM's name, photo, and a copy to the front desk. He added a line at the bottom that made me want to knit him something. Any packages for Mrs. D will be refused. My dad called at lunch to tell me RD had come by his clinic and apologized again, quiet like a man trying not to disturb a sleeping dog. My dad told him, this time gently, to get his house in order and stop handing keys to people who think your daughter's closet is a public utility. By midweek, my apartment felt like a new planet. The orange sticker on our door had smoothed its edges from being touched too much. The pothos got a fresh terracotta pot and a certain VIP energy next to the window. My roommate and I bought a tiny ceramic evil eye at a flea market and propped it against the no antes beyond this point sign, not because I believe in curses, but because sometimes ceramic is medicine. We invited 2 friends over for chai and pakoras, and when somebody knocked, we both looked at each other, then at the peephole, then at the camera, and only then opened the door. The muscle memory is stupid, but it's ours now. On Friday, I came home and there was a paper bag outside our door with my name written in slanted Annie handwriting. Inside, okra, raw, and a note that said, let's be friends again. R's mom. My stomach dropped. I lifted the bag by the very tips of my fingers and took it downstairs to the front desk. The concierge took one look and said, ma'am, we saw her on the camera leave that and walk away when our backs were turned. He tossed the okra like it was contraband. The manager filed it under documented contact and added it to whatever electronic folder now exists with my name and an anti-shadow creeping around it. The absurdity makes everything harder and also easier. Sunday, at Temple, it was almost calm. RM wasn't there. RD was, with his brother, and he looked like a man who had slept a full night for the first time in weeks. He didn't come over. He didn't need to. An auntie who truly loves drama inhaled like she was about to begin a monologue, and my mom said, without turning her head, don't, and the auntie's mouth closed like an automatic trash can. That night, I hung the dress back on my door, more for the ritual of it than for any meaning it's supposed to carry. We watched a bad movie. The plant put out a tiny new leaf that looked like it had no idea about any of us. I locked the deadbolt and the sound felt like someone finally turned the last page of a book that had been left open too long. I slept. No footsteps but ours. No chimes but our phones. No knocks except the ones we invited. And somewhere out there is a plastic bag in an evidence locker, holding an air tag in timeout, which feels righteous in a way I can't explain. Update 5. 2 nights after the okra bag, there was a knock at 10 p.m. that didn't sound like pizza or neighbors or friends. It was that authoritative rhythm again. Through the peephole, 2 officers, hands visible, faces neutral. My stomach did a small gymnastic routine. I opened the door with our chain on. We got a call for a welfare check, one of them said. Caller said 2 young women were screaming and crying. My roommate glanced down at the bowl of popcorn between us and then at the TV where Paul Rudd was saying something about ants. I said, we are screaming only at this movie. The officer did a quick sweep with his eyes the way you check a fridge when you know there's nothing inside. We do need to see everyone's faces, he said, apologetic. We stepped into the doorway like we were being counted into a field trip. They took in the socks, the candle, the very threatening nail polish drying on our coffee table, and nodded. I'm sorry, one said, and he meant it. The other one lowered his voice. We've had a couple calls from the same number about noise here. Each time we come, it's not that. He didn't say the part where the concierge had a split screen of our hallway camera and the lobby phone. He didn't have to. The manager emailed me the next morning. The number used for the call matched the name on a condo association complaint submitted 20 minutes earlier about Amada students. He attached both to the documented contact folder with a subject line that read Psy. Doc X. Midweek a detective called about the air tag, not a uniform, a plain voice with that patient cadence like he's used to people crying, denying, or both. He asked if I could come down with my mom to make a formal statement. The station smelled like paper and lemon cleaner. He laid out the little white disc in its evidence bag and slid a form toward me. We sent a preservation request to Apple. We've got a response. He tapped the screen. The account that activated this tag is registered to an email with Mrs. D's name in it and the last 4 digits of a number that matches the welfare call. He looked at me, then at my mom. I can pursue a misdemeanor charge for unlawful tracking. I can also forward this to the Commonwealth's attorney if you want to seek a protective order. My mom didn't let me answer alone. We are not trying to ruin anyone's life, she said, but we are done with experiments at our expense. I signed. My hand shook like it was pouring chai for a god. When we got back, there was a paper folded under my door like a hotel bill, except it was from the building. A formal trespass notice had been served on RM that morning. It listed the statute in bold. It said failure to comply would result in arrest. It also had a line at the bottom in our manager's dry humor voice, this includes leaving produce. Friday, because of course it was Friday, I was walking up with a bag of groceries when I heard it. That little scrabbling sound on a lock that you only know if you've sat on the other side of a door and learned to feel the world through a peephole. I watched the screen on my phone as the doorbell camera streamed. Scarf, sunglasses, the exact outline of a woman who has never once in her life believed a door was for stopping her. She tried the handle. It didn't give. She put her palm over the camera again like we were doing a bit together. I set my groceries down and texted the manager one word, "Here." He responded with "on my way," which turned out to mean with the desk sergeant from the precinct 2 blocks over. We didn't have to open the door. We watched on my phone as the elevator doors slid apart and the manager stepped out with an officer in a dark jacket who had the energy of "I would rather be anywhere, but here we are." RM started in with a story I could lip read without sound. My daughter, my microwave, my parental rights, my moral fabric. The officer listened for exactly 3 seconds too long and then said something short. He held up the paper with her name on it. She gestured at our door like it had called her a name. He gestured at the camera, the one that had a perfect close-up of the scarf knot under her jaw. He did not handcuff her. He did, however, write on a pad and hold it out. A summons. She refused to touch it like paper could bite. He put it on top of the trash can by the elevator and took a photo of it sitting there with the floor number behind it. It was the pettiest, most delicious thing I have ever seen a public servant do. The officer rang our bell and, through the door, asked if we'd like to add the welfare check calls to the report. "Yes," I said, loud and clear. "And the okra?" He didn't blink. He said, "We have the okra." The next morning at temple the sermon was about boundaries. Not in those words, but close enough. The priest talked about how even Krishna had to leave the house to become himself. A murmur went through the anti-section like wind over rice. RM wasn't there. RD was, with his brother again, standing as if he just remembered how to stand without checking over his shoulder. After the RD, he sidled up to my dad, pulled something out of his wallet, and put it in my dad's hand without looking anyone in the eye. A key. My dad put his other hand over RD's and closed both around the metal like they were doing some small ceremony. No words. Just the sound of the hall and a bell and somebody's toddler laughing at nothing. R texted me that afternoon from a number I didn't know. "I got a dorm spot," she wrote. 3 words that felt like soft bread. "I start work at the library on Monday." I told her I'd label a bag with a few things she'd left that I thought she might want. Photo booth strips, a scarf that smelled like her old shampoo, a half-burned candle with a name like seaside linen that had made my living room smell like someone else's summer. "Keep the candle," she wrote. "My mom hates it." I don't know why that made me laugh so hard I had to sit down. That afternoon a thin white envelope arrived with the Commonwealth seal and font that said "You better read me." Hearing set for the tracking charge. I put it in a drawer with takeout menus and spare batteries because I couldn't stand looking at it on the counter next to the fruit. My mom came over anyway and made tea like court had been a long dream and we were finally awake. We cooked a simple dinner and nobody tried to take the pan out of my hands. At 9, our doorbell pinged. My heart did that thing again and then settled when the screen lit up with RD's face. He held up a Tupperware like a white flag. I cracked the door. "I made these at her aunt's," he said, and if you've ever seen a father trying to be a bridge you know the exact way his voice sounded. She asked me to drop them. Potato cutlets, still warm. I took them and said, "Thank you," and my mom said, from the kitchen, without showing her face, "Tell your daughter she did a good job." He nodded like he was collecting a blessing to deliver. When he turned to go he paused and half-faced the camera. "We're getting help," he said, to the lens, to my mom, to the hallway. He didn't say for what. He didn't have to. That night I watered the pothos and it didn't hide anything. The tiny leaf unfurled a little more like a green ear listening to some music I couldn't hear. My new roommate cleaned the counter without announcing it. We ate cutlets on the couch and watched the worst show we could find. I hung the white dress on the closet door like a joke between me and myself and the universe. When I turned the deadbolt, it made that now familiar click that sounds like a sentence ending. I slept. No welfare checks. No okra. No footsteps but ours. The key RD had returned sat in a little dish by the door. Every time I walked past it, it looked smaller.